final minutes of Silo Season 3, Episode 3 leave us with one terrifying image. Juliette Nichols, the woman who has survived cleaning, escaped death more times than anyone thought possible, and slowly begun reclaiming the memories that were stolen from her, is lying on the ground, poisoned by toxic gas after risking her own life to save people she barely knows.
Juliette Nichols is an existential threat.
It's a cliffhanger designed to make every fan ask the same question. Will Juliette die? But after watching the episode several times, I don't think that's the biggest mystery the writers are leaving us with. In fact, I think they're counting on us to focus on Juliette's condition while something much darker slips past unnoticed. Because the mine attack doesn't feel random. It doesn't even feel like a desperate attempt to eliminate one troublesome mayor. Every decision leading to that moment is so precise.
As you've said, we now have the opportunity to eliminate that threat and save the silo.
So perfectly timed that it starts to resemble a plan that was unfolding long before Juliette ever stepped into the tunnels. What if the mines weren't simply where Juliette almost died? What if they were exactly where the algorithm wanted them to be? And if that's true, then Episode 3 isn't ending with a failed rescue. It's ending with the first stage of a much larger strategy against the one person the system has never been able to control. Stay with me until the very end, because once we connect Juliette's poisoning, Lucas, Return, the memory drugs, and Camille's impossible choice, the ending transforms from a simple life-or-death cliffhanger into one of the smartest pieces of storytelling Silo has delivered all season. Before we jump into today's breakdown, do me one quick favor. If the algorithm hasn't already calculated that subscribing is the safest decision for the future of humanity, hit that subscribe button. It's completely free.
I need to find Lucas Kyle. Could you take me where you took him?
The area is sealed off. It's not possible.
It helps the channel more than you know, and unlike the people running Judicial, I promise clicking it won't get your memories rewritten.
Tell anyone about this place.
And make sure you watch this video all the way through, because every clue in this ending connects to one final theory. By the end, I don't think you'll just be asking whether Juliette survives. I think you'll be asking why the algorithm needed this exact ending to happen.
The death of one person that spares the lives of 9,912 others.
Let's quickly recap what Episode 3 gives us, because it's easily the strongest chapter of the season so far. After spending the first 2 episodes trapped inside a version of herself created by memory suppression, Juliette finally starts trusting the instincts that made her such a dangerous opponent in the first place. She secretly stops taking the medication, begins questioning the people around her instead of accepting their answers, slips past surveillance, and follows every clue she can find toward Lucas.
I need to find Lucas Kyle.
Lucas Kyle. You recognize that name?
At the same time, Daniel and Helen move closer to uncovering the truth behind the Iran mission, discovering evidence that someone has spent years making sure the real story never reaches the public. At first glance, these storylines seem completely separate, one inside the silo, one in the world before the silos, but they're both telling us exactly the same thing. The people in power don't just hide the truth. They reshape reality until the truth becomes almost impossible to recognize. That theme reaches its most terrifying expression inside the mines. Camille becomes convinced that Lucas is hiding below mechanical, and instead of confirming the intelligence or protecting the innocent workers already underground, she authorizes poisonous gas to be released throughout the tunnels.
Fumigators with enough gas to fill the tunnels. One of the rats might be Lucas Kyle.
On paper, the justification sounds simple. Flush Lucas out before he can escape. But the moment you stop looking at the operation as a manhunt, the entire sequence begins to change. Because if capturing Lucas was truly the priority, this is one of the worst possible ways to do it. Poison doesn't distinguish between fugitives and miners. It creates confusion, panic, and unnecessary casualties. The plan is reckless if the goal is one man. But it's strangely effective if the goal is creating a disaster that forces someone else to intervene. And that's where Juliette comes in. Think back over everything we've learned about Juliette since the very first season. Whenever someone is trapped, she goes after them. Whenever authority tells her to stay back, she ignores the order. Whenever ordinary people are in danger, she puts herself at risk without stopping to calculate the odds. Those aren't random acts of bravery. They're the defining traits of her character. Every person who knows Juliette understands this about her. More importantly, the algorithm understands it too. An intelligence that spent centuries observing human behavior doesn't need to guess what Juliette will do. It already knows. The moment innocent workers become trapped underground, there is one outcome more likely than any other. Juliette will go in after them. That's why I don't believe the mine attack was simply an assassination attempt. It was a trap built around Juliette's greatest strength, her compassion. The algorithm doesn't need to force Juliette into danger because it knows she'll choose danger herself if other people need saving. That's what makes this plan so disturbing. It doesn't remove her free will. It uses her free will against her. By creating the right circumstances, the system can predict her decision with extraordinary accuracy. From Juliette's perspective, she's making a heroic choice. From the algorithm's perspective, she's following the exact path it expected all along. And suddenly, one of the episode's most heartbreaking moments takes on an entirely different meaning. When Juliette reaches the trapped miners, she isn't thinking about herself. She enters carrying breathing equipment, determined to save as many lives as possible before the gas spreads any further. Then, panic takes over. One desperate miner grabs her oxygen mask, choosing his own survival over hers, and disappears into the smoke. It's an incredibly painful scene because it's so human. In a moment where death feels inevitable, fear overwhelms reason. Most viewers walk away blaming the miner for abandoning Juliette. I think the episode is asking us to blame something else. Fear itself. Because fear has always been the algorithm's most effective weapon. Not violence, not punishment. Fear. When people are terrified, they stop acting like a community and start acting like individuals struggling to survive. They stop trusting one another. They stop questioning authority. They stop thinking about tomorrow because they're desperate to reach the next minute alive. That's exactly the society the algorithm knows how to manage. And inside those poison tunnels, it almost works perfectly. Lucas arriving at the exact moment Juliette collapses may be the single detail that prevents the algorithm's plan from ending exactly as intended. Throughout the episode, the system appears to be several steps ahead of everyone else. It predicts Juliette's movements, anticipates her willingness to sacrifice herself, and creates conditions where panic does the rest of the work. But Lucas changes the equation the instant he emerges from the darkness. Remember, the people running Silo 18 believed he was cornered, isolated, and running out of options. Instead, he has survived, built connections with the outsiders, and reached the mines at precisely the moment Juliette needs him most. If the algorithm prides itself on predicting human behavior, then Lucas represents something it struggles to calculate, a person who refuses to follow the path everyone assumes he'll take. His rescue isn't just heroic, it's disruptive. For the first time in the episode, the carefully controlled sequence of events begins to slip beyond the system's grasp. Even more interesting is Juliette's reaction when she sees him. She doesn't fully remember her past, yet something inside her recognizes Lucas before her mind can explain why. That's a subtle but incredibly important piece of storytelling. Earlier in the season, the memory drugs seemed almost absolute, stripping away relationships, experiences, and the emotional weight attached to them. Episode 3 quietly suggests the opposite. The facts may be buried, but the feelings remain. Juliette doesn't remember every conversation she shared with Lucas or every danger they faced together, yet her instinct tells her he matters. That's a terrifying flaw if you're the algorithm. You can suppress memories with chemicals. You can rewrite records and erase history, but emotional connections are far harder to destroy. They survive beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to pull someone back toward the truth. That idea also explains why the algorithm appears so desperate to eliminate Juliette now, rather than simply continue medicating her. As long as she remained confused and compliant, the system could manage her. But the moment she stopped taking the medication, everything began changing at an alarming speed. She questioned Kat's story. She challenged Robert instead of accepting his version of events. She found her way back to mechanical, almost entirely on instinct. And then, in the mines, she recognized Lucas despite the damage done to her memory. Put all of those moments together, and a frightening pattern emerges. Juliette isn't recovering because someone is reminding her who she was. She's recovering because the person she truly is has never disappeared. The medication slowed her mind, but it couldn't permanently rewrite her identity. That brings us to Camille, whose position becomes more dangerous with every passing scene. On the surface, she's still carrying out the algorithm's instructions, convinced that preserving order justifies increasingly ruthless decisions. But the mine attack places her in an impossible position. If Juliette dies, she'll become a martyr, The woman who gave everything trying to save ordinary workers abandoned by the very system she was elected to lead. Martyrs are incredibly difficult to control because their stories spread faster than propaganda. If Juliette survives, however, Camille faces someone whose memories are returning, whose popularity is growing, and who now has even more reason to expose the truth. Either outcome weakens the illusion of stability that the algorithm has spent centuries protecting. That's why I don't believe the ending is asking whether Camille will obey the algorithm. It's asking whether she's finally beginning to realize that the system she is defending has no intention of protecting anyone, including her. And that's what makes the ending of episode 3 so much more unsettling than it first appears. Yes, Juliette's life hangs in the balance, and that cliffhanger is powerful on its own. But beneath it lies a much bigger revelation. The algorithm can predict behavior. It can manufacture fear. It can erase memories and manipulate entire populations. Yet, episode 3 hints that there are still forces it cannot fully control. Compassion, loyalty, and the emotional bonds people form with one another. Juliette entered the mines because she couldn't abandon strangers. Lucas returned because he couldn't abandon Juliette. Those weren't calculated decisions. They were deeply human ones. And if genuine human connection continues to break the algorithm's predictions, then the greatest threat to the system isn't rebellion, violence, or even the truth itself. It's the simple fact that people will always choose each other in ways no machine can perfectly anticipate. That's the crack in the algorithm's perfect design, and episode the third of may have just shown us where the entire system will eventually begin to fall apart.